You're listening to WRKE 100.3 LPFM Salem, streaming live online at WRKE.org, and on the TuneIn app, just search for WRKE. This week's promo, WRKE would like to announce, join RC Sustain in celebrating World Car Free Day next Monday, September 22nd. We are challenging faculty and staff to the first annual Car Free Challenge Day. Think outside, recruit your friends. On Monday, September 22nd, don't forget to tell us what you did by sending an email to rcsustain@roanoke.edu telling us about your commute and if you carpooled. That's a World Car Free Day next Monday. Hello there, it's Anakin Heidrich of the Heidrich Motivational Hour. It's my very first radio show, and I haven't come up with a motto yet, but I will. So, bear with me. I'm doing my best. Kind of what inspired me to begin this radio show was the stories of Les Brown, who wrote his debut book, Live Your Dreams, and has taught many seminars for many businesses and corporations, and helped many people find a sense of self and help people find themselves, including someone like myself. I'm very proud to have listened to the man's work. Listening to his story, it's kind of similar to the story that we had. My mom was a single mother for a while, and his mother raised him as a single adoptive mother his whole life. He was born in the poorest section of Liberty City, Florida, on a hard floor in an abandoned building, and has grew up in poverty ever since. And his mama had a third-grade education, but she knew that with the help of God, she would make her dreams of becoming a parent a reality, even when there wasn't a father in the picture. Anyways, kind of his story about how he went through poverty, and he was labeled as mentally retarded in the third grade and was put back, and he retained that label throughout high school until one teacher named Mr. Leroy Washington finally gave him a sense of self, finally helped him realize who he was, one moment sneaking into his drama classes uninvited. Mr. Leroy Washington was his guide, and they still worked together until Leroy Washington's death, I presume. I've hoped to meet the man one day, and I hope that I get a chance to thank him for everything he's done. He's in his early 80s now, and I hope I can get the chance to meet him before he passes on. And the other person that kind of inspired me to do this recently was a new speaker I started listening to recently. His name was Zig Ziglar, and he is known for his book, See You at the Top, from 1975. And his book, not his book, but his seminars inspired me too a little bit. Learning about his story, he grew up in the Great Depression, and he lost his father at the age of 5 and from a stroke, and he milked cows during the Great Depression as a way to help provide for his family, starting at the age of 8, until he finally started realizing speaking was for him, and eventually he started speaking at his workplace, and he met his wife, and he was married happily to her until he died in 2012. Anyways, those are kind of the two people that inspired me, and there's many quotes and many topics I want to discuss in this program, such as the importance of facing your fears, getting unstuck, understanding, the power of holding on and not giving up in spite of everything telling you to give up. Addressing the importance and the struggles of getting stuck, addressing the damage of labels as they've done to Les and as they have done to me in school. Labels are pain, and they can be very detrimental to one's self-confidence. They have been... It's detrimental to people's mental health
and we need to find a way to move past labels and start calling people what they are. Instead of calling them by their labels, just call them by their names. I'm too familiar with that pain. I want to also promote here at Roanoke College things that helped me was the peer mentoring program. It's called Aspire. It's the Autism Spectrum program. Helped me and many other friends, and you can join if you talk to the information desk or you email Dustin Persinger or Abby Boss. I'd also like to promote the counseling. Counselors here are amazing and have helped me too. I see Colleen about every 2 weeks, and she's helped me in ways I'll never know, even when I've vented too much. And the other things I'd like to address is the tutoring here. It's top notch. I've never been disappointed by a tutoring or a subject writing tutoring or anything of that sort. So please, if you aren't aware of these resources, just ask about peer mentoring, counseling, and tutoring at the information desk in Colquitt. So here's my question. My peer mentor, Ron, gave me advice the other day on meeting people. I'm horrible with social cues and social skills right now because of my autism, and I struggle with making friends. I've dealt with loneliness, and I've only had a few special friends. Kevin, whom we still talk and we still text, and Isaac from Colorado, and Ethan from New Hampshire, whom I just saw a couple months ago. And what Ron told me about trying to meet new people, especially when I go into the film club or any other club that I'm a part of, is to admit your flaws and ask that person, what do you want to achieve? You see, if you admit your flaws and somebody starts talking poorly about you in front of someone else, and you admit your flaws to that person, then they can say, oh, I know him. He's not this way. He's admitted his flaws to me. And it's also good character development to admit your flaws, because everybody wants everything to be perfect about us. We're not perfect people. Everyone's flawed. If you can look for it, you can find it. And, I can't stress Ron's advice enough. Just admit your flaws, and if you ask that person what they want to achieve, it also shows that you kind of care. You do care about that person. You care about their well-being. You care about what they want to do with their lives, and if they haven't figured out what they probably want to do, this would be a good opportunity to help them figure out what they want to do. Help them find some coaching, give them some coaching. You need some coaching. Those are some of the words I'm going to repeat again and again. You need some coaching. So, and I have another story. My mom and I always used to watch all these old shows from back in the day, like WKRP in Cincinnati, The Golden Girls, Magnum P.I., Murder, She Wrote, Three's Company. And she once told me about all these people who sit on their TVs all day and watch all these shows and never feel like they have anything worth contributing to the world or never worth anything doing with their lives. And she asked me, she told me everyone's sitting here watching other people live their lives on television instead of going out and living theirs. So I pose this question to you. Are you watching other people live their lives? Are you watching other people live their lives, or are you trying to go and live your life? Are you trying to go and contribute something to the world, some positivity in a world of tremendous complexity, overwhelming competition, and tremendous change? Are you doing something to make a difference? I had recently at a quad event 2 weeks ago met a guy named Tony who works as Assistant Dean of Students for Student Success Strategies,
And he kind of further encouraged me to go after my dream of becoming a filmmaker and a public speaker, in spite of all the obstacles that I am currently facing, such as the rise of artificial intelligence and the lack of qualifications I have right now. And he told me, instead of focusing on the things that you don't have, focus on the things you do have. You have good health, you have people that support you, you have a family and a mother that loves you. And it kind of helped me further realize my dreams. And I kind of babbled on again, more on and on about what I want to do, and kind of the films that inspired me to go after and make my film, kind of describing some of my life journey because of what I want to do. The film I want to make is one that I want to be so amazing that it kind of hits and it almost hits the top 100 of best films ever made, and could even potentially be nominated or win Best Picture. Those are the types of marks I want to make. But more important than that, I want them to make a message about the problems we're all facing right now. I think it's something that we need to wake people up to. I always, one of the problems I see is everyone just believes garbage in, garbage out. Well, as Les Brown puts it, no, garbage in, garbage stays. And it stinks, and it shows up in people's attitudes, and people daily become belligerent, disrespectful, one-sided. It's not in, it's not out, it's not cute, it's not funny. It's tolerated. And so we need to learn that it's not garbage in, garbage out. It's garbage in, garbage stays until we find a way to push the garbage out and push out the negativity. So here's some of the things I want to say is I kept thinking opportunity would knock at every door for me. And what I eventually realized was it wasn't until I finally went and got the help myself that I realized opportunity does not knock at every door, as Les Brown would put it. Opportunity stands by silently, waiting for us to answer. Everyone's talking about choosing to leave things as they are and not willing to strive for past what it is that they've already done. Well, if you haven't even lived a year, or if you haven't even been the same person you were a year ago or a day ago or a month ago, I don't believe you have changed at all. It's like I said again, are you watching other people live their lives? And if you're so embarrassed of doing something poorly the first time, let me tell you this. Anything worth doing is worth doing badly until you get it right, because if you start running with your fears, you'll always be running. So seek opportunity and not security. And another word of advice I want to give you is everybody sits there and comes up with excuses about if something's not broke, then don't fix it. Well, there are many people who seem to believe that if it's not perfect, then keep working on it. And there's always something you can do. You can always better your best. You can always go past what it is that you have done. So, you parents, people are also blaming their circumstances for where they are. Our parents may bring us into this world, but who we become is our choice. It doesn't matter if you were abused. It does matter if you were abused as a child. You grew up near addiction. You grew up near drugs and alcohol and all those sorts of negative things. But who you become in the process is more important than who brought you or what brought you into the world. Your children, there's a saying I learned, is that our children come through us, but not from us. Like Les Brown, he kind of mentioned, for a long time, I hated my natural parents, even though I had no idea who they were. It was a lot of work holding that grudge. I didn't even have a picture to glare at. Finally, I dropped my baggage, though, after contemplating a quote from philosopher Hale Gibran, who said that our parents bring us into this world, but in the end, we are responsible for what we become.
Parents, he said, are like the archer's bow, and their children, the arrows. Our children come through us, but not from us. My anger was eased too by a friend's reminder that as an adopted child, I was chosen by love rather than being delivered by fate to my mama, Miss Mamie Brown. And, of course, he always wondered who his parents were. All he knows is that his mother gave birth while her husband was away in the war, and World War II, and she can never tell Mamie Brown who their parents were, because if the husband found out, then he would kill her. And so Miss Mamie Brown made a vow to never reveal the adopted parents to Les, and Les held on to that anger for a while, and he eventually learned to get past it after he realized that he wasn't given away. He was chosen with love. He knew that his mother didn't know who they were at the time, and even though he gave his mother such a hard time, his mother, with only a third grade education and the hope of God, knew that she was going to make it. So, what I want you to do is think about your dream, because I'm sure I'm listening to people who want to work on themselves and advance themselves. And here's kind of what I want to say. I don't believe we were born on this earth without some purpose. I do not believe that we were given dreams that were given to us that weren't meant to be accomplished. I don't care how hard it might have been. I don't care how far-fetched it might appear to be. What I care about is that it's possible. Even if we say I can't do that, you can always say it's possible. There were many times when I've hit rock bottom and I've had depressing episodes, and I always said, I can't do this, I can't make this work, I won't be able to get my degree, and I won't be able to make it through my classes, I won't be able to make my film a reality or do anything I can do right now. And I realized it was part of that fixed mindset and that growth mindset. But at least during those times, I followed Les's advice. He said, we can't always say, I can do that, but what we can say, it's possible. So all I kept saying to myself was, it's possible. But just because you say it's possible doesn't mean you won't face problems. Speakers and inspirational books aren't meant to guard you from the difficulties of life. They're just meant to help you better prepare yourself. They're meant to help better prepare you for many of the triggers you'll face, because you'll always face triggers from painful events in your life. It's bound to happen. It's a cat-kicking world out there, as Zig Ziglar said again and again. So here's a little mantra that I kind of repeat to myself that Les once used by a poet and author, Burton Braley. He said, if you want a thing bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it, if all that you dream and scheme is about it, and life seems useless and worthless without it, and if you gladly sweat for it and fret for it and plan for it, and lose all your terror of the opposition for it, and if you simply go after that thing that you want with all of your capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope, and confidence, and stern pertinacity, if neither cold, poverty, famine, nor gout, sickness nor pain of body and brain can keep you away from the thing that you want, if dogged and grim you besiege and beset it, with the help of God you'll get it. Listening to something like this every day and repeating something like this to yourself every day is almost vital to your development. I would say it's almost necessary. I'm not saying you can buy happiness, or if you buy a book, all your problems are solved. Nobody can truly buy happiness, and if you've been led to believe that, well, I'm sorry to say, but they lied. You are kind of being used if you believe that something's going to buy you happiness. It may help you towards happiness, but it's not going to buy you happiness. And then I think that's some of
the problems we're facing is everyone thinks that they can buy their way into happiness, and if they aren't happy, it's their fault. No, that's what you've been tricked to believe. It is not your fault. Happiness is not something that you buy or put inside you. That your happiness is already there. You just have to find it. You have to find that little child inside of you. So here's some of the other things. What do you do when you hit those tough times and you get those sad and depressing episodes? For a while, I didn't know, and it was easy to wallow, and it was easy to moan and groan over what happened and who did this and who did what, and eventually I finally found some tips that work for me. I'm a big movie person, and one of the things I learned was, watch inspirational movies. Some of my favorite films, the kind of ones with Robin Williams that I really liked, that inspired me, were films like, Dead Poets Society, Good Will Hunting, and Patch Adams. They've all served some inspiration in me, like, Seize the Day, and, like that whole speech that Robin Williams gives to Matt Damon at the Boston Park, realizing it's not always about your intelligence, it's about kind of the wisdom you carry and how that kind of makes a difference. A book doesn't tell you about who you are. It's people want to know about you, not about what you've read or what you've watched or what you've studied. People want to know more about you. People aren't going to know everything about your life because they've read some novel. And I mean, like for Patch Adams, his story, even though most of this was fictionalized based off of the real doctor himself, I still was inspired by his speech towards the end, talking about how even in spite of the fact that he could lose everything and still gain everything and still rise up from adversity and still say to himself, I may be a thorn, but I promise you one thing, I am a thorn that will not come off. I'm telling you, when I first heard that and I first watched that film, that gave me goosebumps. There's a reason it became one of my favorite films, despite the overwhelming negativity that it was given from critics. And if you're facing, all I can say is that if you're facing some sort of burdens, there's going to come a time, if you want your dreams bad enough, that your burdens won't matter, and you're going to have to drop your burdens to fight for yourself and your dreams. As I have also learned let me read some of this book to you to help you understand what I'm talking about when I say you must drop your burdens to fight for yourself and your dreams. From Les Brown. We called the few blocks that were my territory as a boy the alley, and they had an alley's nature. It could get tough, so we had to be tough. My adoptive mother, Miss Mamie Brown, tells the story about the time I was coming home from the grocery store with a big bag of rice and a can of kerosene, and she heard the new neighbor yell to two of his sons, jump on that boy and beat him up. I think the neighbor had grown tired of watching his boys wrestle with each other, so he decided they'd do better to tussle with me. When Mama heard the neighbor sick his boys on me, she rushed to the door. She saw that they were all over me, and that I was not fighting back. You see, my mother had done a very thorough job of instilling me the importance of preserving groceries at all costs when I went to the store for her. My mother had no husband and very little money. She had adopted my twin mother and me as infants. She worked hard as a cafeteria cook, maid, and fruit picker to keep us in groceries. She could not and did not tolerate wastefulness. I was not always an obedient son, but through the effective use of a tree switch, my mama had taught me this particular lesson very well. And so, even though I was taking an awful whooping from those two boys, I held on to my mama's saying and held on to my mama's groceries and tried to get a kick in now and then. But when my mama came out and saw those boys all over me, she suspended the grocery preservation rule. She said, "Throw them groceries down and get them boys," she yelled. And I did. They stuck to wrestling with each other after that. They learned their lesson. I learned a lesson that day. 2. One that I hope to impart to you in this book, Live Your Dreams. There comes a time when you have to drop your burdens in order to fight for yourself in your dreams. Many of us carry baggage from the past that hinders the ability to fight for the things that we want in life. Our goals, our dreams. And if you learn in this book to let go of those burdensome emotions and memories, then one of my chief objectives will be realized. You will be able to pursue and live your dreams. You see, if you keep constantly worrying about what's holding you back, then your dreams are merely wishes. If you don't write your dreams down or write your reasons as to why you want your dreams are merely wishes. If you keep focusing on the final goal and the final stage of your dream, then it's just merely a wish. You have to break it down. You have to start at a smaller level. You are not going to go immediately from 0 to 100 in no time. Many of the most successful people in the world didn't go from 0 to 100. Many have faced poverty. Many have faced depression. Many have faced different challenges, and many have had to overcome addiction and racism and chaos and protest and constantly being told you can't do this and you can't do that to become what they were. So, drop your burdens. Drop those things that are affecting you. Drop those things that are hurting you. Those people that hurt you have probably moved on with their lives. You have to let it go. If you've been angry for more than a week or so over something someone did to you, you need to move on from that. Anger is good for a while. It's good feel for a while, or not even a while, a little while. But after that, you have to let it go. You're allowed to, you can moan and cry, and you can feel a certain way about what happened, but for a little bit. But don't throw yourself a pity party, as Les and Zig called it. Pity parties, instead of throwing a pity party, start finding out ways you can throw yourself a victory party by going after your dreams and by going after what is yours. The fact that you are still on this planet shows that your work here is not finished. It's kind of crazy. We have to learn how to be positive in an ever so negative world, and it's hard. And I've had it hard, and we've all had it hard. We've all had stories to tell. And let me put it to you this way: you don't want to go around telling everyone your story. You don't want to give everyone ammo against you, because let me tell you this: 80% don't care, and 20% are glad it's you. You hear someone else talk about their problems, and that you think their problems are bad, and you hear their problems, and then you realize they had it real bad, and you look at yourself, and you realize your problems weren't as bad, and you realize you had it good. Not everybody cares, and some people are happy that it's you who's suffering. So you don't want to go around telling everyone your story. I'm not saying never reach out and never voice your problems. You must vent. You need to vent. You need that counseling. You need that mentoring. You need that tutoring. Everybody is like the blind man who needs to be walked across the street. Nobody has it. Nobody has it easy. There's no such thing as climbing a smooth mountain. You're gonna have. If life was climbing a smooth mountain, everybody would be climbing it. You're always going to have those hard edges. You're always going to have those paths that you can never seem to cross, and you're always going to have those moments where every muscle inside of you is aching to stop. But let's put it this way: once it is done, it is done. You've done it. You don't have to think about that again, and you finally push yourself up to serving a bigger purpose in this world. As what I feel like is, I think of this one story Les had with his son, and it kind of served me in many ways. Talking about how he was playing Connect 4 with his son at the time, and he was getting tired, and he said he was getting ready to go to bed, and his son said, "You can't go down, Dad." And he said, "Why not?" And his son said, "It's not over until I win." And you start to understand that, that was his attitude, and he realized it's not over until I win. And so that was his son's attitude, and so he agreed to sit down and play several other games, and after the 11th game, his son won, and he yawned, and he stretched, and he said, "I'm ready to go to bed." And I'm saying to you, what if we took that attitude? It's not over till we win. Every time we faced a rejection or a no or a setback or a failure or defeat or some embarrassment, what if, somebody said, told you no and said you can't do this and you can't do that, and you say it's not over until I win. You have to operate on a relentless, massive scale in order to achieve your dreams. Like he says, nobody believes in you. You've lost again and again. The lights are cut off, but you're still looking at your dream, reviewing it every day, and saying to yourself, it's not over until I win. That has to be your attitude. Must operate on that relentless scale to achieve your dreams. Very, very, very important. Not everyone's going to believe in your dreams. You might lose some friends. You may lose the support of some family. You may face criticism again and again. You must seek opportunity, not security, as Woodrow Wilson once said. You have to be willing to be an uncommon person and understand that being an uncommon person and reading an inspirational book and listening to seminars is not going to shield you from the troubles of life and the hard battles of life, but rather prepare you for it. Even when Les was still speaking and is still speaking now in his 80s, he had faced divorces from people he loved. He was kicked. He was fired from his show. He was fired from his job. He faced constant rejection. He had a friend of his own die while waiting on a liver transplant. He had to learn how to face the struggles of life. He had many opportunities he was going to have. He had contracts where he was going to speak to many corporations and many seminars, and then to find out he never had the contract, despite those who wanted him to speak begged him. Everybody, there's people who begged him to come speak and who passed away later when he realized he never had the contract. He was upset because those people had great thoughts and had great skills, and they wound up taking them to the grave with them. People like to imagine their death as a pleasant one where it's peaceful and you're surrounded by friends and family and with a smile on your face. But also envision it as it may be that your dreams and your hopes were with you, and they said, we came to you and only you could have gave us hope, and now we must die with you. You have to be willing to live a fulfilled life. You have to be willing to determine to run empty, to use yourself up. You need to be willing to use your life up instead of letting life use you up and program you up. Some of the many things you can do to help find your sense of self is listening to books, listening to audiobooks. I listen to speakers every day. I have recently just started listening to the book The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, one of the many people who served as an inspiration to Les Brown. And I've also started listening to Zig Ziglar's book, See You at the Top, from 1975. It was his second major book and hit bestseller. And he too also served as inspiration to Les when Les was working on his dream and he was trying to become an entrepreneur and come into the speaking business, when he fell on hard times and he'd be sleeping in his office and people would laugh at him and say, there's a guy talking about becoming successful, and look at him. He's bathing in the bathroom upstairs on the 23rd floor. Look at him, him and two other dreamers up there. Sometimes you have to be willing to go that far. Are you willing to get your teeth knocked out for your dream? Are you willing to lose a few friends? Are you willing to lose some support? Or sometimes losing the support, some sort of few people is a good thing, because it weeds out who's right for you and who you need to have in your life to support you when those inevitable hard times hit. Everybody's going to face unavoidable suffering of any sort. But of course, avoid suffering when you can. But no, you will face unavoidable suffering, as I have too. I've been embarrassed in classes and bullied in classes for my autism, and being called special and whatnot, and it kind of had a label on me, and it kind of was what led to the depression that I went through. It's a shame. I've been embarrassed by teachers whose names I don't even remember, and I've been threatened by students in classes, about my issues, and I used to have issues with always laughing all the time, the Asperger's, in classes, and I was always pulled out of class, and I was always punished, and instead of helping me get these issues under control, I was punished, and I was labeled, and I wasn't given much time to wasn't given much time to explore me and find me until after I left elementary school, and honestly, not even until after I left high school was I able to really find out who I was, especially after listening to these speakers, and especially Les, and figuring out what they had to say. I had been laughed at, I had been shunned, I had been humiliated, I had I've been labeled, and it hurts, and I've had to learn through many conscious deliberate effort to eventually let those labels go and forgive those people, as they did not know any together. But I think it serves as an important message that we need to spend more time devoting helping children finding themselves in schools these days, as many are consumed by everything going on in the outside world. Everybody's expected to study all these facts and figures and core subjects and extracurriculars, but very rarely do we spend time on developing the student itself. They say out of every $100 we spend on the education system, less than $1 gets spent on developing the student. It's difficult too. We need to spend more time on helping the students find out who they are, instead of voiding them as unteachable or special or educable, mentally retarded, and instead of placing them in the dodo class or a special needs class, we need to learn to bring people together and kind of end that stigma. Let me see if I can find the point that I'm trying to make. My apologies. Anyways, it's hard when you get labeled as you're unteachable and special and dumb and stupid and being told you're never going to amount to anything. So I think that the school systems can do a better job on instilling those fears, or not instilling those fears, but instilling those ideas. Like I said, not everybody's going to believe that it's possible, but it is. I've had people who've instilled something in me. One of my favorite teachers was from the 12th grade. Her name was Miss Hallie, and she kind of inspired me to continue my joy for reading and my joy for literature, which has thus led me to want to work in film. And one of my film ideas is to develop Les's life into a biopic. But like I said, when you die and all your dreams are sitting there looking at you saying, "We came to you and only you could have given us hope," it's kind of sad to think about, because the richest place in the world isn't the gold mines or the palaces or the White House. It's the graves, because that is where those people who didn't act on their potential or dreams take all their potential and dreams to the graves with them. That's where all the gold and the treasure is all the potential that has been buried, all the hope that has been buried. Imagine how further along we'd be in this world if everyone acted on their ideas, everyone listened, everyone cared about one another, everyone put away their differences, and everyone didn't always act with only their intentions in mind. As Henry David Thoreau said, Oh, to reach the point of death and realize one has never lived at all. Ego edging God out. You need to have faith, finding answers in the heart. You have to understand that nobody is going to care about your dreams as much as you do. No matter how much they support you, you are the one who knows your dream best. You are the one who can rely on you. You are your most reliable person. The most reliable hand you can rely on is the one on your wrist. If you're too dependent, try being more independent. That doesn't mean don't seek out help. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs coaching. Most people fail in life because the possibility of blindness and addictiveness to powerlessness. I, too, am guilty of some of this. What they need is a coach who can help them see beyond that and help them reach an addictiveness to being powerful and influential. They have to... Everybody needs coaching of some sort in their lives. Like I said earlier, everybody is like the blind man waiting to be walked across the street. And I'm going to probably mention this a lot throughout my programs each Saturday onwards until further notice. But I have some books I recommend to you. The first book, of course, is the Les Brown book, Live Your Dreams. It was his first major book from 1992, and I've read the book 4 times through and through, and I've been inspired by it in many ways, in more ways that you can count. It's helped me face many of these treacherous waters. Most recent time I listened to it, I had just finished the book roughly 3 weeks ago, and I've learned to, not necessarily overcome my difficulties entirely, but find a different approach to face them. Sometimes you have to change your strategy. Sometimes you have to better your best and learn to realize that maybe what you were doing in the past hasn't worked, and that the failure, as Zig Ziglar said, is not a person. Failure is not a person. It's just rather an event. It just tells you, hey, this is a chance to improve what it is you have done. And some people look down on failure as this sort of enemy, but really, it should be considered a teacher. It should be considered telling you, saying, hey, what it is you have done before has not worked. Let's try and change our approach and go at it again. And part of that is getting locked in, like I said, operating on that massive, relentless scale to achieve your dreams. You have to disregard the know-it-alls, because you're always going to have people who think they know it all and say it can't be done, and give you countless examples, and so you have to learn to disregard the know-it-alls and set sail. The fact that you are still here on this planet means that your business is not done. You're never too young or never too old to accomplish your dreams. Of course, have reasons for your dreams. Write them down, or they're merely your wishes. And understand that even when you face criticism, don't focus on revenge. Your success will be your revenge. Don't say, I'll show them. Instead, say, I'm going to be somebody. Kind of from one of my favorite songs by Travis Tritt called I'm Going to Be Somebody. Very good song. I recommend listening to it. Amazing. Striving from hard times and striving from the poverty. And eventually, everybody knows your name. And understand and have this in mind when people start putting you down. No matter what you do or say to me, I am still a worthwhile person. I've learned to, understand that. I've had to understand too, there are many places where I've realized my values weren't, and my wants and my contributions didn't matter and weren't appreciated. And I didn't realize how detrimental it was to my mental health until I entered a very rough depression. And I've had to understand that I need to go where I am appreciated and leave where I am not, because if I stay where I am not appreciated, it eats you. And I've learned this the hard way, because now I have stomach ulcers. It's a joy. It really is. I couldn't imagine anything worse. But luckily, I think I've been able to move past those ulcers. I don't worry about what's eating me. Many people die from what they eat, but many people also
die from what's eating them. It does. It hurts you. Your blood pressure goes up. Your heart rate goes up. It sucks when you focus too much on what's eating you. It pushes too much stress on your body. You get your body aches because your mind has transferred all that negativity to your body, and your body doesn't fully understand how to process all the pain. It's good to vent, and it's good to, cry about it. It's not cry. Just let yourself cry. It's not going to last forever. I promise you, it's actually better for you to cry. But don't throw a full-on pity party. Don't let it last. Don't manifest into more negativity, or else it's just all going to hurt you further. It's the same what goes for revenge and anger. Just as I said, don't say, I'll show them. Say, I'm going to be somebody. Don't always say what you mean. Sometimes you have to say what you want, of course, without going at the expense of others. And what I mean by saying with what you want is you need to be blunt. Sometimes you have to be blunt. Sometimes you have to be straightforward to people. Sometimes people need a good kick. Many people don't enforce good eating habits until they're diabetic or they're overweight, or many people don't read until they go to jail or go to prison. Many people don't work on themselves until they've hit some rough point in their life telling them that they're going to die. I've heard many stories of people who were diabetic and, nothing ever seemed to touch them. Nothing ever seemed to get to them. It's kind of a shame because, as a saying is, many people won't participate in their own rescue. If you're not going to participate in your own rescue, how can you expect people to help you? If you don't participate in your own rescue and you think you're comfortable with the way you are, then you'll never grow. If you do not help yourself, God will not help you. And obviously, like I said, don't go around telling everyone your plans. 80% don't care and 20% are glad it's you. What you want to do is awe them and shock them when you make your dreams a reality. Many didn't care about what Les wanted and what Les's dreams for becoming a speaker were like. Only he knew it best, and only he could rely on himself the most. And, of course, he had to have his mentors. He had his mother, Miss Mamie Brown, and he had his, teacher. He had one of his mentors, Mr. Leroy Washington, and many of his friends, William and Dexter and Jack Boland, and, all were ahead of his time. And honestly, he like he said in himself, he had them to thank for doing what he is doing right now. So, like I said before, don't go around, watching other people live their lives, and like I said, don't let fear stop you too. Fear is false evidence or expectations appearing real. Strong feelings and fears, especially in the past and the present or whatever, have no value other than that you give them. Sometimes you need fears. Sometimes you need that fear that you're gonna die if you keep eating, or if you keep having poor eating habits. You're gonna become overweight if you keep living a sedentary lifestyle. You're gonna get fired if you keep showing up late to work. Sometimes you need fear. Sometimes fear is a good thing, but what you need to do is you need to acknowledge that fear and not let it stop you. You have to understand that the fear has no value other than that you give it. So, again, like I said, don't let your fear stop you. You continue operating on that massive scale. Don't go around telling everybody your dreams and your hopes, because most of them don't care. And what you do is you're going to wind up helping others build theirs instead of helping them or giving them the opportunity to help you build yours as well. Nobody's going to help each other work on our dreams if we go around telling everybody, because anybody can just take yours and run with it. So don't go around telling everybody what you're doing. Most don't care, and like I said, some are glad it's you. 80% don't care, and 20% glad it's you. So, don't, like I said, here's something that I've learned. I was once stuck in the mental ward. I
during like one of the hardest, roughest times in my depression back in December of 24. And it was, like I said, a challenging time. And here's something that they gave me. They gave me 40 safe coping skills, because I do not have the best coping skills. And I thought I would read this to you. And here's what I say. Here's some coping skills. Ask for help. Reach out for someone safe. Inspire yourself. Carry something positive or negative. Something positive I carry is the book, Les by Les Brown, Live Your Dreams. It's not a safety net. It's just something that gives me some confidence. If I bring it, it's like the book has some magical power or something, or you could, like I said, it could be something negative to remind you of the road you went down. Obviously, you shouldn't make it make you negative. You want to become better, not bitter. So sometimes you need something negative to remind you of the road you could have went down. If you don't go over your dreams, you have to understand that the goals that you have set, or the goals that you must achieve if you are to get out of that negative situation. So sometimes carrying something negative can remind you of where you could end up if you don't declare all out war that you're going to get out of your rut, and that you don't set out on a relentless, massive scale to achieve your dreams. Another thing is, I say, when, leave a bad scene. When things go wrong, get out. You can avoid. If you know you can avoid the suffering, avoid it. And another one, I can't emphasize this strong enough: persist. Never, 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 never give up. Please. Just don't. And, honesty, you have to learn how to be honest. Holding secrets and lying, it damages relationships. It doesn't matter if it's a white lie or a red lie or a blue lie. It's all at the core of trauma and hurt and pain, and learning how to be honest helps yourself heal. Another one is learning to cry. Let yourself cry. It will last forever. You remember the movie Inside Out? The movie taught you that sometimes you need sadness. Sometimes crying helps you release the weight of many of life's problems. So let yourself cry. It will not last forever. I've had to learn this a few times, and every time I did, I felt so much pain and so much trauma get released from my body that it almost felt empowering, and I almost felt like a completely new person, and I'd come back ready, determined to run dry. So sometimes, yes, you do have to cry, but don't let it manifest into negativity. Don't throw a pity party. Help yourself cry to help yourself prepare for that victory party. Choose self-respect. Choose whatever will make you like yourself tomorrow. Obviously not at the expense of others. So you have to learn how to take care of your body, eat right, exercise, sleep, all that. You have to learn how to practice these methods, and I've learned to start going to the gym. It's my goal to go to the gym at least once a week and run 4 miles, and I try to at least eat something. At least eat a couple of meals every day. I always try to at least eat a fruit or a vegetable every day. I've learned this the hard way. I've had, if you don't practice these methods, your trauma will come back to you. I've learned it the hard way when I stopped going to the gym, when I've stopped listening to advice, when I've stopped eating right, or I've hardly ate at all. My physical and mental and emotional well-being all suffered horribly. So please take good care of your body. You only get one. You only hear once. And, list your options. Figure out in any situation you have choices. You also analyze what brought you here, and if you had a negative experience, look at what you've done and realize what could have brought you there. And if you realize what brought you there was negative, then try to find some way to change it up in the future. Like I said, avoid avoidable suffering. Create some meaning for your dreams. Create some purpose, otherwise they're merely wishes. So what are you living for? Are you living for your children? Are you living for, to find love? Are you living to find companions? Are you living to find truth, justice? Whatever are you, everybody has something they can gain from one another. Everybody has impact. Like Patch Adams like Robin Williams from Patch Adams said, transference is inevitable. Every human being has an impact on another. So, why can't we have this in an everyday relationship? Why can't everybody have a positive impact on one another? Instead of dividing people and making people bitter, we should be making them better and start uniting people. Do the best you can with what you have. Make the most of your available opportunities. Like Maya Angelou said, do the best you can with what you have, and until you know better, do better. Obviously, that wasn't it word for word, but the point still remains. You have to learn how to set boundaries, say no to protect yourself. Compassion, you have to learn to listen to yourself with respect and care, and give it to others too, of course. Like I said, garbage in, garbage stays, but only you can push that garbage out. Only you can get rid of that negativity. When in doubt, sometimes do what is hardest sometimes. Sometimes the most difficult path is invariably the right one. Talk yourself through it. As self-talk helps through tough, difficult times. You can't be calm with yourself. You have to be serious. You have to give yourself goosebumps. If you're too focused on what people have going for them, think about the things that you have going for you, and help you understand that you must do this. You must achieve your goals. You must achieve your dreams, especially if you have something at stake like money or family or your children or your love or your emotional well-being. You have to learn how to talk yourself through it. Self-talk helps in difficult times. Imagine, create a mental picture that helps you feel different. Remember a safe place. One of my safe places that I like to take myself back is my friend Kevin and I. He always said, look up in the stars and I'll be there. So sometimes I have to look up in the stars, especially when I hit those long, lonely roads. Listen to good music. One of the other places I like going to was, the Waybury Inn in Vermont. It was one of the inns that I went to, and it inspired the Stratford Inn in Newhart. Newhart's one of my favorite shows, and Bob Newhart's one of my favorite comedians. But I always imagine that if I were to die today, that inn would be my heaven. It's my safe space. Like I said, it's part of imagining. Create a mental picture. Notice the choice. Notice the exact moment. Pace yourself. If you're overwhelmed, sometimes you might need to go slower. If stagnant, go faster. Sometimes you might need to take a break altogether, but don't let that break turn into a vacation. Your vacation will come. Your fruits of your endeavors will come when you have achieved your dreams. Sometimes you have to do what is hard now to do what is easy later. You have to work hard now and play hard later. Of course, don't turn your breaks into a vacation. Stay safe. Do whatever you need to do. Safety first. Seek understanding, not blame. If you could spend your life blaming who did what, whether it's true or not, blaming just prevents growth. If one way doesn't work, try another. Sometimes being alone is better than being in a bad relationship. If your relationship is draining you and killing both of you, then sometimes you have to learn what is better. Avoid avoidable suffering. Prevent bad situations and events. Create a new story. You are the author of your life. Be the hero who overcomes adversity. Ask others if your belief is accurate. Get yourself organized. Watch for danger signs. Watch red flags. Obviously, actual red flags, not what you think is a red flag. Healing above all. Focus on healing. Like my teacher, Professor M, in my Foundations Film and Studies class, he said you cannot focus on your schoolwork until you focus on your physical and emotional well-being. Try something, anything, discovery, attend treatment, participate in your rescue, say what you want without hurting others, listen to your needs, notice the cost, structure your day, set an action plan, protect yourself, soothing talk. Sometimes you need to talk to yourself as if you were talking to your inner child. Anyways, thank you very much for this first try. I'll do my best. You're listening to WRKE 100.3 LP FM, Salem, streaming live at WRKE.org and on the TuneIn app. Just search for WRKE. This is Anakin Heidrich. And are you watching other people live their lives, or are you living yours?